An antique cornet is not just a musical instrument, it's a piece of history, with each note carrying the echoes of generations past. The guests shared that the cornet had been passed down from their great-great-grandfather, George Warren, who served in the Civil War. Warren was a cornet player and a band leader. The cornet had been in the family for generations and in the guest's possession for 35 years. The appraiser described the cornet as a large bore type, having a wider body compared to more slender models. The string rotary valves were activated by levers, and the instrument featured superb engraving, with the bell inscribed E.G. Wright and the original mouthpiece. Remarkably, it also included the original price list from E.G. Wright. Unlike most cornets made of brass or German silver, this one was pure silver, making it extremely rare. The appraiser considered E.G. Wright the foremost brass wind instrument maker in the United States during that period, noting he was born in Boston in 1811, began his work in 1841, and died in 1871, 10 years after this cornet was made. This cornet, being a presentation-grade item in silver, was described as an organological treasure. While estimating its retail value, the appraiser said,
I thought this could sell in a retail environment at about $35,000.
Yeah, that would surprise me.
This painting is a family heirloom passed down through generations. The guest inherited it from his mother, who inherited it from his great-aunt. This oil painting on a canvas was created by Maynard Dixon. Dixon was an American artist known for his paintings that focused on the American West.
He stayed with them at their ranch. At least that's the family legend. Mm-hmm. Tom was a rancher. He was out growing grain and alfalfa.
And was popularly known as the last cowboy in San Francisco. The painting is of the guest's great-aunt and uncle's ranch in Oregon. It was done in 1913 when Dixon stayed with the guest's great-aunt and uncle. The painting is a very good example of his work, and it depicts a typical Western landscape.
The use of some of the heavy impasto here in the lower right, just above the inscription. The view is very interesting to me.
Bearing his signature, this original piece of oil painting on canvas can only have a value estimate of...
We believe that if offered at auction, an auction estimate in 2022 would be $50,000 to $80,000.
My goodness.
Our guest print of Buffalo Bill was given to their great-grandfather, who immigrated from Italy to Pueblo, Colorado, and lived on the mesa before moving to Greenhorn by wagon train. Buffalo Bill took a liking to the guest grandfather when he passed through the area, and he gave him this picture. Buffalo Bill was a famous performer and showman, known for his Wild West show, Buffalo Bill's Wild West. This print shows Buffalo Bill in a more subdued outfit, different from his typical fancy frontiersman attire. The print is dated 1907 and was printed by the Courier Litho Company in Buffalo, New York. Although Buffalo Bill's career was not as large in 1907 as it had been in previous years, he was still performing. The appraiser values the print at a jaw-dropping price of...
At auction, I would estimate it between $4,000 and $6,000.
Okay.
Offered a glimpse of a unique blend of form and function in this item called the automation diorama, which has been in the guest husband's family for generations. This item features a beautiful water scenery with a boat stand and lighthouse crafted from cardboard, encased in a glass dome. To see the diorama in action, a button is pushed at the bottom. Dating back to 1890, this terrific piece was made in Switzerland. Every part of this diorama is perfectly preserved and functional. The value of this piece of folk art, in its pristine condition, is placed at
of $1,500 to $2,000.
Great.
This tankard is a fine example of the fusion of Chinese artistic techniques and Western functional forms, a hallmark of Chinese export silver. The tankard is made of high-quality silver and features intricate repousse work, which involves hammering the silver from the inside to create a raised design on the outside. The handle of the tankard is elegantly shaped and is adorned with additional decorative elements, providing both a practical grip and an artistic flourish. Overall, this Chinese export silver tankard exemplifies the skillful artistry and cross-cultural influences that characterize Chinese export silver, making it a treasured collectible that's worth.
If this is to come into auction, I would estimate it at $2,000 to $3,000.
Okay, very good.
After this guest house tragically burned down, friends threw a housewarming party for their newly built home. Among the thoughtful gifts, she received a mysterious three-piece object.
So we bolted them together in the back and hung it as a mirror.
It turns out that this item was made for a table called a plateau.
It was used for putting a whole array of fruits and ceramic figures. There are wheels on the bottom of the piece, so it could in fact be moved on the tabletop.
The craftsmanship featured original bronze cast Athenians, and the surface was applied by fire gilding. This remarkable piece was actually made in the 1820s in Paris. Considering its breathtaking craftsmanship, what would its value be?
We would give this an auction estimate of $50,000 to $70,000.
Oh my God. I'll have to call her before that and tell her she's rich.
Jimi Hendrix's music and fashion sense has inspired generations of rock and roll fans. His style, particularly his stage outfits, is highly influential. The EMP Museum in Seattle houses some of Hendrix's iconic wardrobe pieces. Celebrity clothing's value for collectors depends on documentation and
Documented pieces that were worn during stage performances. The first piece here, a kimono that was worn by Hendrix numerous times, but most importantly during the Newport 69 festival that took place in Devonshire Downs in California.
the first item is a kimono worn by Hendrix during the Newport 69 festival in California. This festival was significant as it was one of the last shows played by the Jimi Hendrix Experience before they disbanded. Hendrix wore velvet pants with this kimono, notably during his legendary performance at Woodstock. The pants are iconic, representing his groundbreaking solo of the Star-Spangled Banner. The kimono, due to its documented provenance and significance, would sell for $75,000 in today's market.
We talked about the pants. We're in a different class altogether, aren't we?
Yeah, there really is no comparable for something that is this iconic. We'd have to go to a different market.
It's because of their iconic status and association with Hendrix's Woodstock performance are in a class of their own. The rock and roll market for memorabilia, while not as high as Hollywood, still values pieces like these extremely highly. Carved sapphire ring, marked Cartier and adorned with a beautiful flower motif, dates back to around 1920 to 1925. It features a Ceylon sapphire, known for its lighter color and exquisite design, and it was acquired at a flea market. The guest received the carved sapphire ring as a heartfelt gift from her husband.
So years ago? This is a carved sapphire. I would say right around 1920 to 1925. Okay.
Its platinum shoulders are accented with small diamonds in a triangular shape and enhanced by black enamel, which is in excellent condition. An incredible sapphire is bezel set with no prongs, and the piece is signed Cartier, indicating it is a New York creation. Its base metal is platinum with 14-karat white gold on the bottom. This stunning piece with a Ceylon sapphire has an auction estimate of...
I would say auction estimate would be between $5,000 and $7,000.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Great, thank you.
Dutch painting attributed to Andries Vermeulen, a late 18th to early 19th century artist.
Attributed, there's a plaque on it that says Andries Vermeulen, and I did look him up once. He's a Dutch painter of the late 1700s, early 1800s.
Has been in the family for about 60 years, originally purchased by the guest grandfather in Michigan. This oil-on-canvas piece, which has been relined, features a beautifully detailed Dutch skating scene, capturing various small, lively moments typical of the period style. It boasts labels from reputable galleries like Frost and Reed in London and Daniel Rees in Michigan, enhancing its authenticity. The canvas's age, the paint's condition, and the detailed execution all support its authenticity. Although the market for 18th and 19th century Dutch works has softened since the 1990s, the current conservative auction estimate for this painting is between...
However, if I were to put this painting at auction today, I would put a conservative auction estimate of $10,000 to $15,000 on it.
Okay.
This man and his wife stumbled upon a book and paper show, winning a $50 gift certificate in a raffle.
We spotted these two photographs. We decided on the larger one because we had just bought a new house, needed some art to put on the wall.
This photo reminded him of his father, who used to run a cattle farm with his grandparents, so he brought it.
I always remember my father having a portrait of the prize bull on his desk, so I had that connection.
Little did they know that these would soon become treasures of substantial value. Photographs were captured by the elusive John Stryker. Stryker started doing rodeo photography after he moved to Fort Worth, Texas.
The legend is that he had a camera strapped to his boot, and he would lay down in the arena and take the pictures so the bull looked like it was actually flying.
After the rodeo, he would post his photographs and sell it to the cowboys.
He's highly collectible. There's just not a huge amount of them out there that are in decent condition because they were owned by cowboys and nailed up to their walls.
The photograph is valued at $1,500. The circus-like theatrics photograph is valued at $500, while this pair of unusual bull pictures is estimated at $1,500.
Well, they just hang on our walls. We enjoy them no matter what, but no idea they were worth that much.
Vintage lithograph poster from around 1920 showcased an aircraft from Aeromarine West Indies Airways. The guest acquired this piece at an outdoor flea market in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, 35 years ago. As a former player in the aviation industry, the guest was drawn to the poster's aviation theme.
But the aviation theme appealed to me because that was my business at one point.
Resonating with his past business endeavors involving turboprop aircraft leasing. Designed by artist Winchell in New York, this lithograph provides a glimpse into Cuban history, featuring landmarks such as the Castillo de Tres Reyes del Moro. Such rarity and historical significance make it a prized addition to any collector's trove. Despite its faded condition, this rare find is estimated to be worth between...
In my opinion, were this to come up for auction now, an estimate would be between $4,000 and $6,000.
Wow.
The guest brought in two dome-shaped boxes that were in their mother's parents' place in New Hampshire. The appraiser was excited, confirming that these types of boxes, with reeded tops, are indeed from New Hampshire. These boxes belong to Mary Churchill, whose initials are on the front, and were likely made by a sweetheart or husband. The appraiser highlighted the special aspect of the boxes, their original paint.
They take all the paint off. I don't want them because they want to get down to the original pine. Thank goodness people in your family to whom these were passed left them alone.
Many similar boxes have had their paint stripped to reveal the eastern white pine wood, which is indigenous to New Hampshire, but these were left in their original state. The preservation of the original paint significantly increases the value of the boxes. The appraiser estimated that, in an auction situation, these boxes would be valued in the...
So I think in an auction situation, these would easily be estimated in the $10,000 to $15,000 range.
Wow. Really?
And that's with nothing in them.
Who would have thought?
This bowl came from the guest grandmother's home in upstate New York, a house built between 1800 and 1820 on a Revolutionary War land grant. This bowl was made from a large burl, which had to be cut off the tree and then shaped into a bowl. The burl's intermingled grain makes the wood more stable than straight grain.
From looking inside of here that the grain is all swirly. Well, the reason they made it out of burl was because it would stay stable more so than a straight grain would.
The time period of 1815 to 1820 matches the bowl perfectly. This bowl shows wear from use, including tool marks and dough residue, indicating it was well used. It was turned on a lathe, which is evident from the rings underneath, and...
Perfectly round, but over the years, it expands and contracts, and it'll contract one way against the grain more so than another.
This bowl's oval shape is due to years of expansion and contraction, as it was originally perfectly round. The appraiser and colleagues believe the bowl is made of ash. The bowl has a nice old surface, which is important for its value. Our guests used the bowl to hold DVDs and videotapes on top of their old TV. In a retail setting, the bowl is worth
That in a retail setting. This bowl's worth $6,000.
Oh my, oh my.
Guest grandfather bought this fishbowl in New York around the turn of the century, and it has been in his family ever since. Our guest mother had it for about 50 years before it was passed down to the guest.
Likely made as a pair in China, about 1840 to 1860.
The appraiser confirmed it is a Chinese fishbowl, likely made between 1840 and 1860. It was probably produced in Canton, China, known for making export ware for both local merchants and international markets. The fishbowl is a fine example of 19th century Chinese export ware.
As we get into rose medallion ware and other export ware done during the 19th century, it gets very sloppy. We get simple outlines of faces.
The cartouches display finely executed details, with well-outlined red lips and noses, contrasting with simpler export ware from the same period. The fishbowl also features foliate bands and molded mythical beast-simulated ring handles, resembling archaic bronze forms. The appraiser valued the fishbowl at
of this quality would be around $6,000 to $9,000.
$6,000 to $9,000? Okay.
This man is a collector of vintage automobiles and automobilia. He acquired 14 posters crafted by the skilled hands of August Bueller for the 1933 Chicago's World's Fair. On the other hand, this mobile gas poster was a cherished gift from a neighbor's family.
And he was in the graphic arts department. They made posters for the 39 New York World's Fair, and this was made, and I was told it's the only poster ever made.
While this third poster was bought at an antique car show in Hershey, Pennsylvania. The appraiser unveiled the true origin of these posters. This shell poster actually came from 1936 rather than 1933 after the Chicago World's Fair.
All the research I found showed that it came from 1936, so a few years after the fair, when Bueller did a whole series with this title, The World Experience in Every Gallon. They tend to sell in the $400 to $600 range.
Wonderful.
This one was from the 1939 San Francisco World's Fair poster and was part of a widespread advertising campaign.
And all of the posters show different aspects of the world.
Right.
And so it's a great series. Some of them have come up for auction in the past.
The poster unfolded with a masterpiece from the turn of the century by Abel Trausch.
Its value is the highest of all of them, and at auction I'd estimate it between $1,500 and $2,000.
Very interesting.
The overall value of this collection was $2,300 to $3,000.
Live and learn.
Live and learn.
Thank you very, very
You're
much.
welcome.
I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. I'm happy to heal the sick.
Thank you.
Like
I'll never be cured.
The guest received a miniature set from his uncle, who was an Army officer. This Japanese set, a place setting for 12, was of exceptional quality. Made of bone china, this piece was remarkably translucent and of high quality. Bone china, a type of porcelain, is made from bone ash, feldspar, and kaolin. Dating from around 1952, the set featured intricate floral designs. The appraiser highlighted the exceptional craftsmanship, noting that one-hair brushes were likely used for the painting. The guest mentioned that he took it to a miniature shop, which offered him $75 for it, but he declined. Given its high desirability among collectors, the estimated value was,
I wouldn't be surprised if it went between $1,250 and $1,500.
Oh my goodness.
Take a look at this captivating portrait. This remarkable piece was painted by Mary E. Hutchinson, and it depicts a woman named Lola, the guest husband's aunt. Mary, the artist, was an art instructor from Atlanta who lived and worked in New York City. As seen, this portrait is a representation of 1920s New York glamour. Mary had a personal connection with Lola, often pursuing her affections during the sittings for the portrait, indicating a deep admiration for her.
All that we know about artists, we know there's often relationships that develop between artists and their sitters.
This portrait captures Lola's stunning beauty, an aspect well documented through photographs taken by the artist.
The manager of the Copa, and she told me that that's how she met a lot of these people, you know, artists and musicians, and kind of how she gained relationships with them.
The painting not only showcases Hutchinson's artistic talent, but also serves as a window into the vibrant social scene of 1920s and 1930s New York. Given the rarity and quality of Hutchinson's work, The portrait would fetch.
We could still say an auction estimate of between $4,000 and $6,000 on this picture.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for bringing.
The depth of art cannot be fathomed, and this rusty Erlin oil painting is proof of that. The nature-inspired painting was made by Magnus Colcord in 1964. Magnus was a Swedish-American artist known for his depiction of Alaskan landscapes. He made several oil paintings which sold for thousands of dollars at auction. The owner of the piece got it from his parent as a gift. The painting captures the mystique and frontier of Alaska. The art takes a close capture of the northern Alaska light. Erlin made use of blue palette to describe the snowy nature of Alaska, the musher, and northern lights. Beyond the outlook, the painting also captured quietness and serenity. The painting also bears the middle name of the painter. It's not surprising that this great piece of art is worth $40,000 to $60,000 at auction.
Okay. Wow. Was not expecting that.
No, this cup-looking item is not a cup per se. It's a type of item called a whistling tankard. Whistling tankards are used during the old days to signal waiters for a refill in pubs. This particular one is more special than you might think because it was made by a silversmith named William Holmes.
Was only 10 years old. Is there anything special about the tankard that you know of?
It's called a whistling tankard. I understand a whistling tankard is where they'd sit in the pub and when it was empty, they'd whistle and the guy would come and fill it up.
William was the nephew of one of America's founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin. This tankard was one of the earliest depictions of engineering genius, and this is supported by the whistling mechanism by which the tankard operates.
Here at some point, that has been lost. Whistling tankards are quite rare, and especially in American silver.
At auction, this tankard, thanks to its creator, would be worth...
Valuation, I would put it somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000.
This guest presented a Rolex Submariner he acquired through a friend who traveled to Hong Kong.
He came back with this watch for me. I've run with it, I've surfed with it, I've scuba dived with it, I've orienteered with it, I've backpacked with it.
This piece is a driver's model featuring the desirable Submariner printed in red ink on the dial, confirming its authenticity. The watch exhibits several condition issues, such as a faded bezel insert from black to gray, a stretched-out bracelet missing end pieces, and a scratched acrylic crystal. The dial, crucially, remains untouched and original. These aspects contribute to its collectible charm. Additionally, the preservation of the original paperwork is particularly noteworthy, as it is uncommon. In today's market, this watch model is highly sought after by collectors and would sell for...
This watch today easily retails for $20,000 to $25,000.
This Chinese silk summer court robe, dating from around 1900, is an exquisite example of traditional Chinese court attire. This robe is crafted from lightweight silk, making it suitable for wear during the hot summer months. The fabric is finely woven and displays intricate embroidery, a hallmark of high-status garments from this period. The robe is adorned with vibrant colors, with the dominant hue often being a rich, imperial yellow or blue, reserved for the emperor and high-ranking officials. The designs are meticulously stitched with silk threads, creating detailed and textured motifs. Also, the sleeves are wide and flowing, adding to the robe's majestic appearance that would auction for...
The estimate would put this in the $5,000 to $8,000 range at auction.
Excellent.
Guests discovered the vase at an antique show in Dallas. She was immediately captivated by its beauty, especially with the light under it on a stand. Initially, the vase was not for sale, but she left her contact information with the sellers. In 1987, she finally received a call and purchased the vase for $3,000. The vase is signed Dom Nancy at the bottom, which the appraiser confirmed as authentic. This vase was made around 1900 by the Dom brothers in Nancy, France, a major Art Nouveau center. The decoration features popular violet flowers and an unusual engraved and...
After I bought it, I found Dom Nancy written in gold, printed.
This piece is carved with acid, then enameled and gilded, showcasing a sophisticated technique. The appraiser estimated the current retail value of the vase at
Well, besides being worth a lot to you, I would put a retail value of probably in the $15,000 range.
Great. That's great.
Olive Edis, an early 20th century photographer, holds a significant place in the history of photography.
To come to Chroma and to get to talk about someone that I know who I consider to be extremely important in the history of photography.
The museum has preserved the largest collection of her work for around 10 years. Edis pioneered techniques and proved herself equal to men in a male-dominated field. Remarkably, she became the first official British woman war photographer during the First World War. Edis's self-portrait exemplifies her talent for capturing deep emotion and humanity. Another notable work is her portrait of Betcha Johnson, showcasing her dedication to documenting local fishermen.
And it's a portrait of a local fisherman. And I say the reason it ties in is because she's wearing a sou'wester there.
One of her cameras, used by the London celebrity photographer Rinking, is also part of the collection. Edis's collection is nationally important, and while valuing it might seem unusual, understanding the market is essential. Her photographs, such as the portrait of a fisherman, can fetch between
A photograph like this of a fisherman, it could cost you £700 to £1,000, something like that at auction. But to me, owning a piece of history.
In 2001, a discovery unfolded for the guest as they delved into her late mother's belongings, stumbling upon a mysterious box in her safety deposit box.
I would think he probably bought that box. I can't imagine her buying a box like that.
This beautifully crafted box was made by none other than Gerald Benny.
He is considered one of the most important, celebrated craftsmen of the 20th century in England.
It unraveled the tale of Benny's innovation, making the box's significance deepen.
And I think to people who collect postmodern pieces, he is considered very important, and very important to the history of British design in general.
The box is actually a silver box adorned with an 18-karat gold knob that was made in England.
The decorative scheme on this actually became known within the trade as the Benny bark sort of technique or Benny bark finish.
Hallmarked in 1972, the same box had recently fetched a considerable sum at an auction in London. The magnificent box has an estimated value of $5,000 to $7,000.
My mother would be turning in her grave with this.
An interesting story from the culinary world was shared by the guest.
Well, my mother is involved with the food industry and has attended a few auctions throughout her professional career.
Sure. One memorable auction involved Julia Child, who served as an honorary chairwoman. Julia Child donated these pans to support aspiring chefs. She was a renowned American chef, author, and television personality who played a pivotal role in introducing French cuisine to the public. Her significant impact on cooking and pop culture is remarkable.
She wasn't the first TV cook, but she really connected with so many viewers out there.
Pans, used by Julia herself, carry historical weight.
Julia Child once said that her first French meal was an opening up of the soul and the spirit, and she really communicated that.
The guest mother acquired these pans for $3,300. Would it double in price?
So I think an auction value today would be about in the same range as what your mother paid, right around $3,500.
The guest unravels the origins of a cherished painting passed down through generations. Her great-aunt was a science teacher at Brooklyn Polytech High in the 1920s.
And at the same time that she was teaching science, Jane Peterson, who is the artist, was the director of drawing for the Brooklyn Public Schools.
The bond led to summer painting sessions in Gloucester, the very site immortalized in the artwork.
She acquired this painting from Jane, and it has been in our family for about the last 80 years.
Jane Peterson was an Impressionist and Expressionist painter born in 1876.
She came to New York to study at Pratt Institute in 1895 and graduated in 1901 and managed to save up enough money to go study in Europe, which was what every American artist wanted to do at that time.
The painting is a vibrant post-Impressionist masterpiece painted by her. Peterson was quite a respected painter.
And she really was quite respected and revered. She was honored by Time magazine, and she really got a lot of honors and recognition in her lifetime.
She painted prolifically, with this Gloucester scene standing out among her cherished works.
She tends to use these very bright colors and a lot of vibrant brushwork, kind of post-impressionist. It was referred to as a watercolor, and it's actually gouache, which is a water-based paint, but it's very opaque.
This cherished painting's value is estimated at $50,000.
Thank goodness you saved it.
A small globe that had traversed continents was brought to the show. It once belonged to this guest great-grandmother who found its way to the United States in the 1800s. This piece was crafted in the German town of Nuremberg.
And the maker of this was actually a gentleman by the name of Klinger who originated this group, but you'll see on the bottom it's marked C. Abel Klinger.
Carl Abel acquired a business that had been started by Mr. Klinger in the 18th century.
And Carl Abel ran the business as C. Abel Klinger to keep the legacy of the founder and continue on.
The estimated value of this piece is...
At auction today, I would estimate it between $2,000 and $2,500.
The items you see here are Tennessee River pearl jewelry. The owner bought some for $2.50 in the 50s, and...
It's been handed down. Some of them came from my grandmother and my mother, and then some have been given to me through the years.
These tiny pearls are very rare to find, as the Tennessee Authority have built a dam around the river. The piece can grow, and the larger they grow, the more expensive they become. The large piece looks rough, but it has a nice color, and it's beautiful. This one is pink. It's a special piece to the owner. The collection of the whole pearls brought by the guest is worth $6,500 at auction. Our guest brought an heirloom that has been in their family, passed down from their great-grandfather and grandmother on their father's side. The item is an intricate artwork made of human hair, housed under a glass dome for protection. Hair sculptures like this were popular between 1850 and 1900, known as Victorian hair ornaments or jewelry.
In many cases, they were done from a perspective of mourning, where it was taking a beloved lost one's hair.
However, this particular piece doesn't seem to be a mourning piece, as it appears to be too happy and vibrant. The sculpture is unique, as it is in the form of a tree, which is rare.
Her hair. Now, we see hair wreaths all the time and hair jewelry all the time. What is rare is to see a tree.
While a piece may seem creepy to modern eyes, it reflects the styles and practices of the time. The appraiser notes that while similar hair wreaths typically sell for $100 to $200, a piece like this, especially with its uniqueness as a tree sculpture, could fetch an estimate of...
If you offered it at auction today, I think you could have an estimate of $1,000 to $1,500.
That's very exciting. I don't know that I would ever want to get rid of it.
The owner of these beautiful paintings has been with them for about 40 years. What you see here are works of Clementine Hunter, a self-taught black folk artist. The artist is the first African-American female artist to have a solo exhibition at New Orleans Museum Art. This piece of art is a depiction of a nativity scene, and it alludes to the iconic birth of Jesus. There is a depiction of the manger where Jesus was born, the wise men bearing gifts, and the angels hovering around the manger to indicate God's presence. Clementine attached realistic details to her painting. One could see the angels' hairs flying as the angels moved around in the air. Apart from the baby Jesus painting, she also depicted a Saturday night party. The paintings depict her skill as a folk artist, and on them is her special signature, which makes her works unique to her alone. The paintings were bought for $800, but are now worth up to $5,000 at auction.
That's great. That's amazing. That's wonderful.
The guest grandmother was a devoted collector, and these items were found in an old trunk. These items are related to the Indianapolis 500, the world's greatest auto race.
It's held every Memorial Day weekend, the Sunday, and it's been held since 1911.
The earliest photographs, programs, and postcards unveiled the stories of race car legends. Ralph De Palma overcame a breakdown in 1912 to drive his Mercedes across the finish line.
So that might deter a lot of drivers, but he came back in 1915 and he won it.
Another car legend was Tommy Milton, who only had one functioning eye.
And yet he was Indianapolis winner in 1921 and 1923.
Unfortunately, Jimmy Murphy faced a tragic fate in the race.
In 1924, he died in a dirt track race up in Syracuse, New York.
While Joe Boyer overcame the challenges of the race and still secured victory.
Joe Boyer, who is on the postcards on your side and on my side, had to share his victory. He had a relief driver come in for him who crashed on lap 109, and then he took over another car and finished the race and ended up being a co-winner.
The photos are valued at $100 to $150 each. The postcards fetch around $150.
Joe Boyer, who is on the postcards on your side and on my side, had to share his victory.
And programs, particularly the rare 1915 edition, are estimated at $500 to $750. The overall value of these cherished items was...
So you add all of this up, and I would put an auction estimate of $5,000 to $7,000.
Really?
What more can excite an adult after a busy day than an exciting doll like this 120-year-old automation made by Leopold Lambert? Leopold was a French automaton maker who made and sold musical gaming machines and toys. This old piece brought for appraisal belonged to the guest grandmother, and it was hidden in a dark cupboard before it was found.
There is the letters SH and the number 1300. So in fact that tells me that she was made by a company called Simon and Halbig.
It has a velvet-covered box that contains clogs, and its musical movements makes it a good toy for entertainment.
Turn the knob.
This is an expensive piece that has different movements. Its head, hand, and tambourine can move. At auction, it's worth up to $1,800 to $2,000. This pair of pieces, brought by his wife's grandmother's cousin, was presented on the show. These pieces are known as Buddhistic lions and hold a distinctive significance.
They were put on either side of a doorway, and they were protectors to keep evil spirits out of the household.
It was created in sets, with a male adorned with a ball, while the female cradles a pup.
And the mother represents the maternal instinct, and the dad is the protective instinct.
The vibrant blue glaze on the lions, tracing its roots to the 17th century Kangxi period. The distinction between the early era, specifically the 17th century, and the circa 1900 version is in the glaze type. The bright blue color is referred to as the glaze. The earlier one has a more pronounced crackly appearance.
I believe these to be late 19th century, 1880, 1890, somewhere in that time frame.
These lions are both impressive and exceptionally well preserved. How much would their value be?
At auction, they would make somewhere between $6,000 and $9,000 today.
Very nice. All right.
Books are many, but few like this are worth keeping. This is Das Werk by Franz Masereel. The author of the book, Franz, was a painter and graphic designer known for his wordless novel which addresses political and social issues. This particular piece is the first edition of Franz's work. They are wordless novels full of woodcuts that tell stories that words cannot really express. Many of his works tell true life stories. This fantastic piece was bought for just $2. How much do you think it's worth at auction?
Its value at retail would be $1,000 to $1,500.
Wow. That's pretty good.
An avid Elvis Presley fan brought in his standee to the show. The standee was found in her friend's attic and given to her, knowing her love for Elvis. Elvis Presley was an iconic American singer and actor. His acting debut was in the 1956 musical film Love Me Tender.
The film was supposed to be called The Reno Brothers, which are the title characters, but his hit single, Love Me Tender, had already sold 1 million copies, so the song was so popular at this point, they actually retitled the film.
The standee was originally made to decorate the lobbies of movie theaters. The standee's appearance vividly indicated how long it had been.
There are only about 2 or 3 of these known to exist.
Really?
this rare standee valued at $10,000 to $15,000.
Absolutely. You're kidding.
No, I've never seen one before. I've only ever seen pictures. So
you made my day.
I'm glad.
And of all people, with Elvis, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Guest brought a pair of hot combs from the Windrush generation. The Windrush generation denotes the people who immigrated from the Caribbean to Britain between 1948 and 1971. When the West Indian ladies came as immigrants, they were having difficulties in getting their hair done from the local white hairdressers. The Guest's late cousin used to make these combs specifically for the women of the West Indies origin. He had a basement where he used to visit after work and on weekends to make these combs. He made this pair of hot combs for the Guest's wife. These combs were heated on the little stoves and paraffin heaters. The value of these amazing cultural objects was so great for the British Caribbean culture that the appraiser considered it sacrilegious to appraise them. Before the advent of refrigerators, this used to be a precious piece in the homes of wealthy people. This is a sarcophagus cellaret made between 1810 and 1840. It's an English sarcophagus cellaret, which was made as a dining piece for homes that could afford it. The design pattern of this piece is nicely laid, and it represents the age it was made. It has an ancient shape, with a spiral design around its cover, and a bobbin turning nulling in half circle, and the lion's poor feet with a formalized lotus around it. These features suggest the idea that the beautiful piece was made in the 1820s. It's inlaid with lead and often used to keep drinks, spirits, and wines. Often ice is kept in it to keep drinks and wine cold, and the lead is installed to protect the piece from getting destroyed by the ice. The wood quality is timber, and it's such a great piece that it's worth £65,000 at auction. The Guest brought a ship painting and a model of her ancestor who used to be a captain of A.G. Jewett's Belfast ship.
They built the ship outside of Belfast, Maine, a little town called Addison. It was what they consider a brig.
Yes.
Port painters were involved whenever American ships embarked on the creation of this painting.
And there was also an artist by the name of Pellegrin who also did these port paintings in watercolor in Marseille at that period.
The appraiser disclosed that Mr. Jewett was a prosperous individual and a lawyer.
He had actually been an ambassador under President Polk in 1843 to 1845 to Peru.
After the vessel sank, it was found in Cuba carrying sugar, machinery, and coal.
When it hit a storm, the ship started to rock and the machinery let go and rocked to one side, and that was the end of the vessel.
Jewett.
Yes.
How much would its value be?
I think at auction they would bring between $10,000 and $12,000 for the two of them.
You're kidding?
No, I'm being very serious.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, they definitely will stay together and go down to the next generation.
It looks like a trophy, but it's really a vase. This green vase is a depiction of Chicago artistry and creativity.
Ware, and they made a rather rectilinear or architectural ware. And obviously we have a fairly architectural piece here.
It's called a Techo vase and was created in Chicago around 1910. In contrast to being called a vase, it is actually called a molded pot. This particular Techo vase is larger than the conventional ones, and this, coupled with the color, enhances its appeal. Despite the damage on its surface, the vase is quality made.
The chips aren't really bad enough. There's scallop shell edge chips that can be repaired.
Do you recommend that?
I would leave it alone myself.
And so, at auction, this vase would retail at
It's more, but still, in the condition it's in, it's a $15,000 piece of pottery.
Oh, my God.
a treasure in a hidden dusty box was almost discarded. This is a collection of Playboy magazines that once belonged to this lady's grandfather.
Out in the open, they didn't have any problems with it. It was just when it came time for them to move or when she wanted to clean the house, she'd want to throw them out.
Right. Despite their past debates, the family resisted letting go of this nostalgic collection. This was a first issue of Playboy magazine, founded by Hugh Hefner.
The very first issue, which we have out here, had Marilyn Monroe on the cover. She was not actually the centerfold. They didn't call it the centerfold then. She was the sweetheart of the month, which obviously is a very quaint way to call it.
Its publication not only housed iconic images, but also featured literary contributions from renowned writers.
We have one of the first serializations of Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, one of the most important works of post-war literature.
The Playboy Bunny logo, now an emblematic symbol, made its debut in the second issue. The collection's value was...
Said in this condition, I would estimate at auction that I would have an estimate of $2,500 to $3,500.
Oh, my goodness.
Here's a musical piece worth examining. It's the work of George Gershwin, an American composer and pianist whose composition influenced jazz and classical genres. The title of this musical piece is Strike Up the Band, a popular piece that formed a part of satire on war and militaristic music. George collaborated with his senior brother, Ira Gershwin, to make this masterpiece. Sadly, the composition did not turn out great, but it was loved by many people. The piece has become one of American folklore. The lyrics of the piece were rewritten as a rally song for UCLA, the University of California, Los Angeles, and it formed a great song for their band. It has the signature of Ira and George on it. The owner was at the rally when the piece was donated to UCLA, so she got her copy signed by the composer. Guess the amount this musical gem was worth.
Between $3,000 and $5,000.
The guest mother was a personal friend of René Portocarrero, a renowned Cuban artist in the late 1950s. She saw this painting in Portocarrero's studio in Cuba while it was still wet on the easel. René Portocarrero was thrilled by her enthusiasm, and together they searched through flea markets in. The chosen frame has colors that complement the painting, with green and white paint added by Portocarrero himself. Portocarrero is crucial for the development of modernism in Cuba.
And what they did is basically start painting scenes that were endemic to Cuba. And in addition to that, they were using bright colors.
His works are known for their bright colors and lavish application of paint, seen in the impasto technique used in the petals of the flowers. The artist's preference for Baroque frames is evident in this piece, adding his personal touch to the frame. The market for Cuban paintings has been rising due to interest from Cuban immigrants reclaiming their artistic patrimony. The appraiser estimated the value of the painting to be...
We think that this painting is worth in the vicinity of $18,000 to $22,000.
My goodness, that's wonderful.
Letters and telegrams carry any interesting features to note about them? Let's find out with this letter and telegram sent by Amelia Earhart to the guest aunt. Amelia Earhart was an influential woman who lived between 1897 to 1937. She was an American aviation pioneer, writer, and journalist. Her write-ups and manuscripts are highly valued, and as claimed by the guest, she's a great friend to her aunt. Here is a telegram sent to the guest aunt, showing Amelia's picture as the maid of honor. This was written in Hearst International Cosmopolitan magazine, and it shows her role as a journalist. Many of her letters showed her entrepreneurial interest in promoting aviation during her time. Amelia is a very important person in American women and aviation history. How much do you think that this collection is worth?
I would value the collection with an auction estimate of $12,000 to $18,000.
Excellent. 18th century piece of jewelry worn by both men and women to suspend a watch.
Of the Wedgwood piece she had acquired, and I fell in love with the Fusey wine watch.
This chatelaine includes a late 18th century Fusey wind watch signed by Geneva watchmaker Philippe Toureau. It features cut steel, polished and faceted to imitate precious stones, and elements of Wedgwood jasperware, a ceramic imitating cameos, signed by Josiah Wedgwood. Additionally, it includes glass bead tassels, gold-colored objects, a lorgnette, and a key. The guest mother acquired the chatelaine during a trip to England. Though made from genuine 1790 to 1800 components, the chatelaine was likely assembled from various pieces. While a pristine Wedgwood chatelaine might be worth more, this assembled piece is valued at...
One has to look at the watch and the pieces together, and my best guess is that this is something that will be worth about, let's say, $1,000 to $1,200, made up of all the individual pieces.
These candlesticks, in a graceful bowl, found their place in the heart of the guest narrative, originating from the hallowed dining room of their grandmother. Her grandmother worked for a family in Westchester County for a long time.
And
They moved west. They left a lot of valuables, so they became part of our family. So that was a nice way for us to get things that I don't think our family could have afforded otherwise.
These golden iridescence glass candlesticks were a handiwork of Tiffany Studios, founded by Louis Comfort Tiffany.
Both candlesticks are signed. They can be used two ways. Sometimes they're used as candlesticks. Sometimes they're used as bases to candle lamp.
On the other hand, this golden iridescence glass bowl, called Astrea, was made by the company Letts. The appraiser connected the dots about how these items ended up in the guest grandmother's possession.
What I do think is it was a really great gift. Oh, okay. For being a really great employee. Yes.
The candlestick's estimated value is $800 to $1,000, while the Astrea is valued at $1,000 to $1,500.
How exciting. I had no idea.
This German Santa Claus figure was made in the 1920s. The guest husband got it from his grandmother, and he took it home when he got married. The piece is made out of cotton batting, piping, and paper mache. It has lost a bit of value in that the color is faded. It should be in vibrant red. But due to exposure, it had lost a bit of its value, and instead of being valued at $500 to $700 in its standard form, it's now worth $50 to $75. Hailing from Brunswick, Georgia, this guest was immersed in the rich history of the South. This cherished, iconic book, titled Gone with the Wind, held a special place to her.
I got the book from a bookstore in South Florida. My husband offered to give it to me as a gift.
This book is one of the greatest books written on the South. The masterpiece revealed the story of its writer, Margaret Mitchell, after a car accident in 1935.
She was fortunate to submit it to Macmillan. The publisher was looking for new fiction, and the editor loved it. She spent the next 2 or 3 years researching and revising.
This signed copy adds to the reality of the book.
She hated signing. So if you see this, this is a rare signature.
With a publication date of May 1936. The guest owned one of the first editions.
To this day, Gone with the Wind is one of the best-loved books. It's been estimated it's sold over 30 million copies.
Despite a missing piece on the dust jacket and some soiling, the value of this book was...
Today, you would put an auction estimate of $3,000 to $5,000.
Oh, wonderful. That's great.
The collection was amassed out of a profound reverence for her, and she's a collector for over 30 years. In the 19th century, women's accessories were essential for both fashion and social identity. During that time, pockets held a variety of items, and if a string unraveled, there was a chance of losing both the pocket and its contents. With a side slit in the dress, one could reach into the pocket hidden within to pull out the items. This apron is evident that it opens down the back. This thin seam indicates a short bodice at the back, placing its likely date around 1805. Each piece tells a story about the fashion trends, social norms, and craftsmanship of the era. Revealing its significance, the appraiser valued the item.
The value of your collection, it's worth quite a lot of money, $6,000 to $8,000.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you very much.
This guest brought in a cherished instrument that once belonged to her grandfather from the early 20th century. The heirloom's history unfolded as the appraiser revealed some information about the instrument.
It's made in the town of Markneukirchen, Germany, and by a good firm, mass-produced, but a very high-end mass production.
The guest thought that the bow is often more valuable than the violin.
And in fact, the bow in this case is essentially worthless. Even though it's got this very fancy-looking bone frog and all these wonderful stripes here, this is what we call imitation snakewood.
It is possibly crafted by the esteemed Ernst Heinrich Roth Company. The instrument was adorned with the intricate details and a beautiful carved head. The cherished violin, valued at a surprising $3,500 to $4,000.
You look stunned.
I am. I am.
And you thought this was better than that?
It's just Grandpa's violin. My mother would be proud.
This is a 19th century Martin C.F. guitar belonging to the guest father. Martin C.F. is an American company that deals with guitar production. It was established by Christian Frederick Martin. The company is highly respected for its acoustic guitars. The guitar here is called the CF-28. It has a spruce front, a rosewood side, and back with inlay. It's called the parlor guitar, and it's a great instrument that ladies love to play with in the band. This unique piece at Insurance is valued at,
at least $3,000 to $5,000. Wow.
The guest had hung this sampler in her home for a long time, and she didn't know that there were letters hidden behind them. The sampler had been passed down from her grandmother to her. The letters found at the back of the sampler were hidden as a treasure. The sampler is beautifully embroidered. It's large and has a detailed graphic describing a house with animals and the steps leading to the front door of the house. It's a great property, and it can be insured for $5,000. These are memorable graphic works. They are World War II posters. The owner got them as a gift from a man from the military. It's interesting to know that World War II posters were printed as propaganda. They were printed in large numbers to influence different nations. These 4 were singled out of the 70 brought in by the guest. 1 was for the British, while 3 were American. 2 of the American posters were signed by 2 artists. 1 was signed by Jean Carlu, a French artist and a graphic designer with 1 arm. The other was signed by Norman Rockwell, an American painter and illustrator. The last American poster depicts a scary image of a dagger driven through a Bible. It was designed to promote hostility against the enemy. The British poster bears a quote from Winston Churchill about the Royal Air Force. These historic collections are worth between $5,500 to $7,750 in value.
Wow. It's a nice wedding gift.
This pendant and Tiffany diamond necklace is a stunning piece with a rich history. The piece has been used by 4 generations of women in the Guest family.
They weigh about 1 carat each. They're all mined diamonds. And then around it you have another 2 carats of diamonds in platinum.
Pendant features 2 large old mine diamonds, each weighing about 1 carat, surrounded by another 2 carats of diamonds in platinum. The chain had stations of old mine diamonds and marquise diamond, leading to a beautiful pendant. Another feature of the pendant is that it signed Tiffany & Company on both sides, indicating that it was meant to be part of the necklace.
Okay. I want to show everybody that when we hit the button back here,
there you go.
And wow, it's a lorgnette.
There's a lorgnette.
Also, the chain is crafted in platinum, and the design is very deco, suggesting a creation date around 1920. Altogether, this necklace is a beautifully crafted piece and adds to the overall elegance of the pendant with a combined value of,
including the other pendant at auction, this would bring $30,000 to $40,000. Wow.
This is from Tiffany Studios. It's a paperweight glass. It's a product of Louis Tiffany, a glass collection and production company. Louis Tiffany had made a watercolor painting and requested that it should be made into glass. The painting is what turns out to be this great exhibition piece, the Morning Glory paperweight glass. It's one of the beautiful pieces Tiffany glass collectors love to have. The piece is worth between $50,000 and $75,000 at auction.
No way! Oh my gosh,
Bought it at a local auction labeled as Tibetan. He purchased it between $100 to $125. Designed for decoration, it exudes a macrame charm with the ancient practice of using human skulls as drinking vessels. A Sino-Tibetan capella blends Chinese and Tibetan influences in a skull cup or ritual object. This synthetic stone was meant to hold a bezor stone, a secretion from goat stomachs. The small almond-shaped stone was believed to be an antidote to poison, believed to counteract any attempts at poisoning by enemies. This shows cultural interplay and the lasting significance of Buddhist symbolism. Intrigued by its fusion of Chinese and Tibetan elements, the appraiser valued the item.
It's worth a few $100s, but certainly it's got to be one of the most bizarre things we've seen on the Roadshow.
It's nice to have this beauty here. It's a special trunk. It's an Iranian trunk, or let's say chest. It was made in Shiraz. These type of chests are built to be placed on dhows, a type of sailboat that was used in the Persian Gulf for many centuries. The sole purpose of this chest is to serve as a storage container. One would expect that this should have faded out due to its age, but it's still in good shape, and it can be displayed in a gallery or showroom. It was valued for an amount between
$2,500 to $3,500. Wow.
Guest brought in an item that belonged to their grandmother. Our guest mentioned that one of her brothers worked for Coraopolis Glass Company. The appraiser confirmed it was indeed from Coraopolis, but clarified it was made by the Consolidated Glass Company. This item was invented by Reuben Haley around 1926, and it's called a Ruba rhombic. The appraiser expressed excitement, noting it's the first time they've seen a Ruba rhombic on the Antiques Roadshow. Despite some damage on the stopper, which affects the price slightly, the appraiser valued the item for insurance at
The value of this would be for insurance $9,000 to $10,000.
$9,000 to $10,000. Oh my goodness.
How interesting and fun it is to know about household items like this crock. It's a household item that was used for storing food items, water, and chemicals before refrigerators were invented. Crock is made from clay, and one as big as this would take 2 men for its production. This particular crock was made with a stencil in western Pennsylvania in the late 19th century. It's a 10-gallon crock, and it was purchased by Mr. Chappelle, a retailer from Cadiz in Kentucky. It's considered an original one because it's a Kentucky retailer's crock. How much do you think this item is worth at auction?
So a good auction value of this would be around $2,000.
What? I'm not going to say, oh wow, but oh wow. Wow, really?
Yeah,